Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This video talks about the method of transmission of Hadith from the Prophet peace be upon him to the writer of the Hadith, to the final author of the Hadith. The Prophet peace be upon him used to narrate a Hadith to a Sahabi, that is the companion of the Prophet peace be upon him, who in turn used to narrate to his successor, that is a Tabi. The Tabi used to narrate it to his successor, who is called a Tabatabi. These words Sahabi, Tabi, and Tabatabi are Arabic in nature, and their plurals are Sahaba, Tabiin, and Tabatabin. So the Sahaba used to narrate the events or ahadith to the Tabiin, and the Tabiin used to narrate them to Tabatabin. There were people among us, the Sahaba, who used to write the hadith, though not on a large scale. For example, Umar used to write hadith. Among the Sahaba, Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu was a great reporter of the hadith. He has reported over 4,000 hadith from his memory only. Other major reporters of the hadith include Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu from among us the Sahaba. The Tabi'in and the Tabi'in also used to write hadith on a larger scale. The first attempt in this regard was that of Imam Malik, who wrote the Muda Malik, the first book on ahadith. It was the first authentic book on ahadith, and it is to this day one of the most authentic books of ahadith ever available. One of the core chains of transmission in this book is the following. The Prophet peace be upon him used to narrate to Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, and he used to narrate to his slave, that is Nafi radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who used to narrate to Imam Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu. This is the main chain of transmission in Muta Imam Malik, though there are many other chains of transmission in this book of Hadith. Now, this is not equivalent to oral tradition. There's a difference here. There's a difference in the methodology of the science of Hadith and oral tradition. Whatever the Prophet peace be upon him used to say to the companions, they used to learn it by heart, and all of them used to learn it by heart verbatim, without any change in words. And then they used to teach their students, which were the Tabi'in and other Sahaba. So this was a method of teaching and learning. And the Sahaba also used to remember the ahadith by heart, word for word, verbatim. Not only the meaning, but word for word, how the Prophet peace be upon him had said, they used to remember it in that way only. This is similar to the fact that there were Hufaz of the Quran, who used to remember the whole Quran, 30 chapters of the Quran, they used to remember by heart, verbatim. This is also the case nowadays, in which Hufaz remember the Quran by heart, the 30 chapters of the Quran by heart, verbatim. So then the Tabi'in used to transmit this hadith verbatim to the Tabi'in, who used to transmit it verbatim to the final author. So whatever the final author wrote, they were the actual words of the Prophet peace be upon him. They were not the meaning only. They were the words, actual words spoken by the Prophet peace be upon him. This is authenticated by the fact that there was a book called Musnad. It was a Musnad. It was a book of Musnad book, and it was written at the time of the Sahaba. In it there was a collection of hadith from a particular Sahabi. This collection of hadith was later also collected in Musnad Ahmad radiallahu ta'ala, Musnad Ahmad rahmatullah. Musnad Ahmad is a book written by Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayh. In his Musnad, he has brought the collection of the hadith from this particular Sahabi that we are talking about. Imam Ahmad has brought the collection of this hadith by various chains of narration. It has reached the hadith have reached Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal by various chains of narration. And when the Musnad Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal was compared with the original manuscript of the Sahabi, there was no difference at all. The Sahabi had written the ahadith at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal had written them almost 150 years later, 200 years later almost, between 150 and 200 years. So there was not even the slightest difference in the wording of the hadith which were written at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and at the time of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayh. This testifies to the accuracy of this method of transmission of hadith from the Prophet, peace be upon him, to the author of the hadith. So before, in the period of 150 to 200 Hijri, that is almost 140 to 190 years after the Prophet, peace be upon him, his death, most of the books of hadith were written. They included the initial books of hadith included the Kitab al-Asar, written by the students of Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh, including Imam Muhammad rahmatullahi alayh and Abu Yusuf rahmatullahi alayh. They wrote the Kitab al-Asar. Imam Muhammad rahmatullahi alayh also wrote the Muta Imam Malik. Muta Imam Malik was transmitted from Imam Malik by many students, which included, one of them was Imam Malik, and one of them was Abul Qasim, and one of them was Yahya bin Yahya. The Muta Imam Malik that is famous nowadays is from the transmission of Yahya bin Yahya, because it contains the maximum number of hadith. The transmission of Abul Qasim contains all the hadith with isnad, and Mutai Muhammad contains the hadith of which he has listened from the Imam Malik, and which he has listened from Abu Hanifa rahmatullah. So Imam Imam Muhammad was a student of both Imam Malik and Abu Hanifa rahimahumullah. So after the Kitab al-Asar and the Muta Imam Malik was written, a plethora of other hadith books were written during the time of 150 to 196 Hijri. Then Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi came and collected all of these books into one compilation, that is the Sahih Bukhari. Thereafter came Imam Muslim, Imam Nasai, Imam Abu Dawood, and Imam Ibn Majah. They collected all the major ahadith of Ihkam in their 6 canonical books, which are famous as the 6 canonical books of hadith in Islam, that is Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Nasai, and Tirmizi. Tirmizi was a student of Imam Bukhari. Muslim was also a student of Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari also traveled to many countries, and the other Muhaddisun also traveled to many countries in order to collect these ahadith. They used to visit the reporters of the hadith. So there was a condition that for a hadith to be seen, that the reporters which have reported from one another, they should have met one another in their lifetime. Only then the hadith was graded as sahih. There were some other efforts at writing the hadith. For example, Musannaf of the Razak was written by the Razak bin Hammam, or Musannaf ibn Bishiba, in which there were plenty of Asari Sahaba, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that is happenings of the lives of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, or the Tabi'in or the Tabi'in. It was a voluminous book, the Musannaf ibn Bishiba, and Musnad Abdul Razak was in 11 volumes. It was also a collection of hadith. Musnad Ahmad, as we have mentioned, it was also an important book in this regard. Tibarani wrote 3 books for hadith, for example, Mu'jam Awsat Tibrani, Mu'jam Sagir Tibrani, Mu'jam Kabir Tibrani. These are three books of Tabarani in the field of hadith literature. Al-Bayhaqi also wrote some important books in the field of hadith literature. They include Shu'ab al-Iman Bayhaqi, Sunan al-Kubra Bayhaqi, Sunan al-Sugra Bayhaqi, and Kitab al-Qirat Bayhaqi. Imam Bukhari also wrote many other books. For example, Tariq-e-Kabir. He also wrote Adab al-Mufarid. He also wrote Kitab al-Qirat Bukhari. Now this time we are also concerned, we're only concerned with the hadith books. So there are other hadith books also. For example, Daraqutni, Sunan Daraqutni. It was written by Daraqutni. It is also a famous hadith book, and Daraqutni is also a famous and expert. He is a famous expert of the hadith after Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari and he are considered important in the Jara and Tadil of the Jara and Tadil of the reporters, or the Naqd, that's criticism of the Ahadith. Other books of Ahadith include Musnad Abi Awana, Musnad Humaydi, Musnad Shafi. Imam Shafi wrote his book Musnad Shafi. He also wrote a book known as Al It contained Ahadith as well as matters of fiqh. These were the books of hadith written at that time. The books of hadith also included the Musnad Abd bin Humayd and other such books. The hadith were also trapped in the books of Sirah and the books of history. For example, the books of Sirah include those of Ibn Hisham and Ibn Ishaq later on. Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham later on. They are also in a large volume of ahadith is also included in the Tariq Tibri, that is Tariq wa Mamluk by Tibri, which was later on modified by Ibn Kathir, and he wrote Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, the authoritative book of the history in Islam. Many of the hadiths are also captured in the book known as Ibn Sa'd, Tabaqat Ibn Sa'd. The reporters of the hadith, they used to be tested by certain criteria. Every reporter which appears in any of the hadith, the biography of every reporter which appears in hadith's chains of transmission is preserved. Any reporter you get from any chain of transmission, from any hadith, especially from the Sahasita, that is Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, etc. His life history has been preserved in books known as Kutb asmaa rijaal. So the life history of every narrator or rawi has been preserved in books known as Kutb asmaa rijaal. These books include the date of birth of the person, the date of death of the person, whether the person was a liar or he was a truthful person, what was the character of the person, where did the person live, who was his teacher, who were his students, who were his teachers, when was he in a particular location. For a hadith to be sahih, the successive the dates of death and dates of birth of the successive narrators should overlap. Then only a hadith is said to be sahih or correct. Furthermore, if a reporter reports from any other reporter who is not his teacher or student, then that hadith becomes majru, that is criticized. It's criticized. It is said that there is kalam in this hadith, there is jara in this hadith. Also, if a particular reporter reports from a particular area and from his life history, it is known that he was not present in that area during that particular period of time, the hadith becomes za'if or weak. This is the stringent criteria on the basis of which the hadith are judged, and any hadith which passes this criteria is a sahih hadith, and the probability that the sahih hadith will not be true is very negligible. So this is very different from oral tradition, which is understood by the common human brain that it was just speech which was said by the people of that time out of their whims and desires. Whatever they used to say, that was incorporated in the books. That is not the case. The case is that it was an organized procedure, it's a science, and everything is written in books till today. Let me tell you about some of the books of the asmaa rijaal. The most important of them is asmaa rijaal could be the most important of them is Tarhib Tahzib Tarhib by Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani. This is an abridged version of earlier works which we will refer to in when we discuss about the Ilm Asma Rijal. Imam Bukhari has also written the Tariq Kabir, in which he has given the life history of many Ravis. There is another book known as Mizan al-Atidal, which also contains the life history of many Ravis or narrators. There are some books which contain the life histories of Za'if Ravis, that is, those Ravis whose hadith are not accepted. They are known as Kitab al-Za'afa. For example, the Kitab al-Za'afa by Abu Zara. Kitab al-Za'afa is also written by Nasai. There are some other books which contain the ahadith which have been narrated by Wazi'in. Wazi'in means fabricators. The books are known as Kitab al-Mawzu'at. One of the books that is most important in this regard is the Al-Mawzu'at. It has been written probably by Ibn Jawzi. So it has been detailed whether a particular Ravi is Za'if, whether he is Wazeh, or whether he is authentic or Sikka. There are three terms: Za'if, Wazeh, and Sikka. So the hadith of a Sikka Ravi with all other conditions fulfilled is accepted. That of a Wazeh is never accepted. That of a Za'if Ravi is accepted only if it is not against a Sahih Hadith or a Hasan Hadith, or against an established principle of Islam, or against the human intellect. And it is also accepted in Maqatib, that is, matters other than those which relate to haram and halal. So this conclusively we want to say that the aim of this video is to bring to limelight the fact that the collection of the hadith and the writing of the hadith was a different thing than oral tradition, transmission of oral tradition. The method of transmission of the hadith from the Prophet, peace be upon him, to the ultimate writer was quite different from oral tradition. It was an organized method based on scientific analysis and based on written information about all the narrators, and based on overlapping dates of birth and dates of death, and based on a comprehensive analysis of the reporters of hadith. Moreover, If a hadith used to be uh, narrated from many chains of transmission, it became more and more strong. A hadith which is transmitted by such great number of chains of transmission that it's impossible to think that all of them may have agreed upon a lie is known as mutawatir. The phenomenon is known as tawatur. So a mutawatir hadith is almost equal to reality. There's another category of hadith which is known as mashhur. The number of chains of transmission in a mashhur hadith is also very great, but is not as great as in the case of tawatur. There are also other categories of hadith. For example, ahad, khabri wahid is a hadith which has only one transmission, one chain of transmission, but it is a sahih chain of transmission. See you again, inshallah.